Okay, so Danny, obviously took a lot of positives in the post game in El Paso. Now that you've been able to watch it back, anything new that you've noticed maybe from that game?
I think honestly what we felt after the game is pretty accurate, having watched it back. That it took us a little bit of time to get into the higher attacking areas consistently in the first half. I felt after the 30th minute we finished the half in a better way than we got through those first 30 minutes. Like I said, I didn't feel there was a lot in the game in the first 30 minutes, of course, other than the goal which we're disappointed to concede. I thought both teams, almost cancelled each other out a little bit in general. And as we finished the half, I was more pleased with how we ended the first half. And then I felt a couple of the changes at half time that we made, within the team structure actually helped us a lot. And I thought the second half we, like I said, deserved at least to get back into the game with the equaliser, and I was pleased with, I think, a bit more of a front foot performance in the second half, that where we looked more dangerous, we looked more goal threatening, and always we'd like to continue to add more of those things, but I felt we improved as the game went, and was in the end pleased to at least get a point out of the game, and felt we maybe could have pushed for more.
What was the thought process in terms of the number 10 position with Fede and Panos? You've talked a lot about how Fede's maybe a more natural player in the hole there. Is it as simple as that for the game against El Paso?
I mean, whether it's more natural or not, it's just a different type of profile there. So I think, away from home, we wanted to play into those spaces and try to connect, obviously, to Fede's feet. We know that he's a player that needs the ball and likes the ball in possession around his body. And again, whether it's Fede or it's Panos or it's somebody else, we have different types of players who can play in those roles. So having looked at the previous week and then having looked at El Paso as a team and how we wanted to try to play, we felt Fede was a good choice for that game, and now we review things again this week as we look towards Charleston.
And when you look at bringing Panos on when you did, what Panos I think talked post game, there wasn't a lot of instruction. It was almost just like, hey, go in there and make a difference. When you make subs like that, what are you looking for out of a player like Panos to come on for 20-25 minutes and try and make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of instruction through the entire week of training. So when players go onto the field, if they don't start the game, then we have a clear idea of what we're asking from the team, and obviously it's not just myself; it's the rest of the coaching staff that speak with players, of course, on a game day as well. But from Panos, we know he is a player who, from that wide area, will like to come into that pocket, and we ask him to move into that pocket. And obviously with Juan playing behind him there, that's more of an attacking profile as a right back, and so the combination of those two movements was really what we were looking for. And then from that point we allow Panos, like we do with Fede as well, then his freedom to be creative and to arrive into the right spaces and then make good choices and provide good quality when he gets into possession. But as far as the structure, that was a clear idea of what we were looking for from Panos, with Juan playing on the outside of him, and like I say, then from there, part of the player's role is then to produce the decisions and the quality, and it's very difficult to then joystick that from the sideline. That's where players have to be good players.
2 games in a row, some consistency for Lawrence on the right and Mo on the left. What are the skill sets that they possess that make you feel they're very comfortable playing as outside backs in a back four as opposed to outside centre backs in a three? Yeah,
I mean, they're actually both players who have good capability to play in both of those roles. Players who have, of course, played as fullbacks in previous seasons. Mo played there for a long time. Lawrence at Nashville last year has played as a right back, and again, they are flexible players, whether it's left and right centre back or left and right full back. They do have the ability to do that. Now, they're also both players who give us good defensive stability, I think, in that back line, because of those same reasons. But we also see, like we did against Orange County with Mo, he's an integral part of both goals that we score. He plays the pass before the assist, and we have good players in those roles. And Lawrence, when he joins those attacking areas, also has good ability to provide for us in the higher areas, and we've seen that from him earlier in the season as well. His involvement in the first goal against Orange County is it plays a role in that as a good team move that ends up in a very good goal. So I mean, for both of those players, it's and then whether it's Rito, whether it's Azakar, whether it's Gabby who finishes the game as a fullback, again we have different profiles, same as I'm talking about the 10s. We have different types of players, all who are capable to play in those positions, but will obviously, of course, bring slightly different things dependent on what's needed in the game.
Obviously, a bit of stability there, but if you look at the season as a whole, there have been changes pretty much every game, and a fairly inconsistent 11 from week to week. You've brought up before about kind of using the entire squad and everyone potentially being a starter, but how have you seen the boys react to that over the course of the entire season?
Yeah, generally good. I mean, look, there's always, when you select players, you can pick 11 to start any game, and obviously everybody would like to and would want to be in a starting 11 as often as possible. At the same time, I think the dressing room recognise that we have a good squad of players who compete well with each other, and we do have the ability to rotate without losing a drop off in quality at all. So it's a good thing to have. It also means that it's a competitive environment through the week of training, and in general, obviously normal disappointments on occasion if players are not in a team, but I think they also know that if they're not in a team on any particular game, that means nothing as far as how the next game and how things moving forwards are selected. So everybody has opportunity, everybody has the ability to compete through a week, and like I say, it can be sometimes a tricky thing to manage, but it also makes sure that everybody's competitive with each other through the week, and then whether they're in a lineup or not, they are still an important piece. And you've heard me say this many times, the players who finish the games for us are just as important in getting results as the players who start. And so it's important that we keep that mindset, and it's important that the players recognise that and they have. And in general, I understand always disappointment if they want to play, which is a normal thing, an important thing. But in general, everybody's been good about supporting their teammates.
A couple of days into training this week, where's Remy at the moment?
Remy, like I said last week, is back in training, trained fully today. So, again, that's a good session to get out of him today. No restrictions at all. So we move forwards with the week, and he's training fully without limitation. And obviously we hope that then come Saturday he's fully available.
How important is it to get him back in there now?
Yeah, of course it's important. I mean, look, he's been probably the most consistent number 9, of course, that we have in the squad. And listen, it's not a secret that Remy's perhaps the only natural number 9 that we have in the squad. So these last couple of games without him, Darius has done a fantastic job, as he does when we ask him to play in that role. And Darius can play as a 9, we know this. But I know as he's spoken about previously as well, maybe it's not the position that he feels is his primary or his most natural position. But when he's asked to play there, he's done an excellent job for us and the team in these last couple of games. But on the flip side of that, of course, it would be good to get Remy back involved with the team and with the squad this weekend, and have that sort of maybe more natural number 9 option to select.
As you look now to Charleston coming up on the weekend, how do you think this team has changed since the one that you faced in the final?
I mean, look, I think the first obvious answer is they add a couple of players into the group that are good players. Malloy in midfield becomes a very integral piece for them, and we know he's been a good player in the league for a few seasons now, so that's a very important piece. As far as stylistically how they play, I would describe them as a fairly consistent and fairly similar type of team. Markovic, I think, is a good player for them as well. Obviously, we're familiar with him from last year, but he's obviously had an outstanding sort of first half of the season here this year in terms of his goal production. But not, I mean, listen, I single out those two. This is a strong team overall, and they've shown that again this year. But I expect to see some similar things, and with good reason behind that. They've been very successful with what they've done last year and this year, and so Ben may not see too much reason to change too much. I'm sure there might be normal sort of tweaks for him as he looks at each game that's ahead of him. But I expect to see a team that has performed well and continues to perform well, and probably with a lot of similarities that we're used to seeing from that setup over the last couple of seasons.
They've struggled to score goals as of late, though, in their last couple. I think they're scoreless in their last 3. Have you seen anything that oppositions have come up against them and changed compared to maybe earlier in the year? Has the staff seen anything like that?
I mean, look, I think obviously as you go through a season, the more familiar you get with teams, the more background information you have in terms of your scouting and your evaluation of teams, and then of course you try to put in place a plan to limit what they want to do, and obviously then a plan to exploit on the other side of things. And I think the fact that they've in their last few games perhaps not been as prolific in front of goal, you can look at that, I think, in many ways. It's probably tough for me to say exactly what the reasons behind that without being close to it, but what I will say is it doesn't change the fact that they are still a very strong team with a very good set of players, and at some point they will, I'm sure, begin firing and begin scoring again. We'll do obviously everything we can to make sure that is not this weekend, we hope, but this is a very good group of players and a very good team that I've no doubt will be around the top of the table come the end of the season.
Throughout the week, how much are you touching on the profile of the game with this one? Rematch of the final, on national television, dollar beer night. How much is that going through the squad of saying, hey, get up for this one? Which we probably don't have to do that much with the group to get them up.
No, you don't have to do it much. It is something that I've addressed already with the group, and I've addressed that honestly in two regards. One, to say, as I've said previously, it's to make sure we understand what the game is that we're playing this weekend, and some of the noise that will sort of come around that game for all the reasons you just mentioned, and then at the same time to make sure that we also look at it as a professional football game, and we have a job to do, and regardless of which TV channel or what the rematch from the end of last season or a dollar beer night or anything else that comes with the game this weekend, it's still 95 plus minutes of football, and it's 11v11, and to be aware of what the occasion is always is something that I speak about to the players, but then also to make sure that they then hone in on the task, and at the end of the day when we cross the white line there, they have a job to do, and that is the only focus once kickoff comes.
With the final last year, and I guess specifically narrowing in, what was going through your head, I guess, you specifically, down 2-0 in the shootout, and understanding what kind of mountain had to be climbed to get there in the end? Yeah,
I mean, it's something I've spoken on a few times here. I think when you go 2-0 down in a shootout, obviously statistically that puts you in a pretty tough situation. And at the time, like I said, my memories of that are, being pretty. I've got my arm around one shoulder on my right, and the words I remember sort of saying to him was, don't move yet. And really what I meant by that was our body language, even at that moment, however we felt, was important. Because any glance from the players over at us on the sideline, we didn't need to add extra emotion into that moment, because as we obviously now know, and we always know, it's never fully over until it's over, even though the odds are stacked against you. So that's my outstanding really memory of that particular moment. And then obviously you have Renzo and Eriksson and Manu then step up and put their penalty kicks away, and of course we all know how the shootout ends. It's pretty rare, I think, that you see somebody go 2-0 down and then win it within the 5 kicks. Maybe in 6, 7, 8 or more, you see that occasionally, but within 5 kicks to go 2-0 down and then win within the 5 first kicks, it's pretty unusual. So it's a pretty incredible memory, I think, for all of us. And as we've said many times, that playoff run was probably situations that not too many times will that be repeated, I think.
Obviously, if you look further ahead down the line, a lot of away games coming up again.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of home games pretty much for the entirety of the summer.
Yeah.
How important is it to get the momentum going now when you do have a home game?
Yeah, it's always important. We know the importance of the home games we have, and I think we've played 5 out of the last 8 games in the league were away from home. I think we have 4 out of the next 6 also away. So yeah, absolutely, a long stretch of a lot of travel, and the couple of Open Cup games obviously within the middle of that takes you right across the country on a couple of occasions as well. And we're through that stage now, obviously from a travel point of view, but it doesn't change the fact that we play a lot of away games, and those are always difficult fixtures to manage. And so yes, absolutely, when we're at home, these are important sort of momentum builders. And listen, like I've said before, I'm pretty pleased with how the team have approached away games so far this season. I think we've gained points on the road relatively consistently, and of course there's games where we'd like to come away with 3, not 1, but at the same time, points away from home are difficult to come by, and then you solidify it by taking advantage of a home game. So absolutely, we understand the importance of the home games. Everybody's aware of this, and we work towards that for this weekend and make sure that we're in the right place to pick up 3 points whenever we can at home.
How much of that comes down to the quality of the pitch as well, though, just knowing that you've got probably a better surface here than at least we could name certain teams across the league?
Yeah, I mean, look, one thing we know is that we go and we play on different surfaces around the league, and it's, look, we can talk about it, but it doesn't change the situation. We go and deal with it, same as everybody else goes and plays on those surfaces. But absolutely, when we come and play at home, it's definitely a surface, and it's definitely a place where, you know, it probably helps us try and attack the game in the way that we would like to. And then, yeah, of course, then it's down to us to put the performance in place. But absolutely, the surface that we're playing on at home when we play here in Phoenix is definitely a helpful factor, and something that we look forward to playing on when we are at home. So it's a good thing.
You've mentioned a lot of the attacking players, and Malloy does a little bit of everything, and Marcanic was brought up. Defensively, though, they're the best team statistically in the league. What's so solidified about their back line?
Yeah, and look, like I said, I mentioned those two players, but I could have mentioned a lot more on both sides of the game. You're absolutely right, and I think that defensive presence that they have from the back line, I think, also runs through midfield as well, with Malloy and with Allen in there probably most of the time. Those two centre backs with those two 6'8" in there are pretty key players for them, and then of course the full backs help that solid defensive outlook. But they have good, I would call, consistent defenders in that team, and not just the centre backs there that I'm referring to. They have players who, you know, add with the ball, but then also put in a shift and help that back line defend the game, and centre backs who, you know, when I watch them play, I feel they are a team that take pride in the way that they defend. They play when they can play, and they don't take unnecessary risk when they feel that's not the right option. And so I would say they probably have a good balance between those two things. They are a team who have good ability to play, and they do. You know, and like I say, they've been a good team again this year in the way that they've played in possession. But then I think, you know, sometimes the choices that they make are good professional choices, and sometimes valuing the safety aspect of how the team defends in those moments. And you know, I say that in a very positive way, in that I think their players make generally good choices in those moments when they can play, and when they need to be a little bit more cautious on the defensive side until the next moment comes for them. And you know, that's part of the reason why I think they've been a consistent team in the league, is that, you know, they have a good ability to attack and go forwards, and then keep the game very stable and very consistent defensively.
With the deeper lying midfielders and the two center backs, how do you best get into that box, that zone 14, the in between those two lines?
Well, I mean, there's a few ways. I mean, I think for me right now, I'll you know, I won't say too much in terms of how we might approach the game, but of course, you know, movement into those areas from players is important. And you know, if we play with number 10s, they'll tend to occupy those areas. Of course, the number 9 can move into that, but they're not the only players. There's multiple ways of getting into that, and honestly, depending on how we structure the game, depending on where we ask, you know, the centre forward to play and occupy, depending on where we, you know, ask our wing backs or our wingers to play, then it becomes different roles for other players to get into those spaces. And I think, you know, like I've spoke about with Panos to finish the game, you know, in some ways we've ended the game on Saturday with you know, with effectively two number 10s, with Panos coming inside into those spaces, and that's obviously where the goal then comes from in the end. But that's with Fede also on the field, and so, you know, regardless of what the structure is from a team shape, there are different ways of getting numbers and getting bodies into that space, and that is an important factor for us. And like I say, we'll put a game plan in place in terms of what we feel is the best structure for this game, and then part of that will be assigning that role to a couple of players at least, depending on how we set that up.
We've seen some players, of course. You look at Azakai, you look at Lawrence, who put a reasonable number of crosses in, but not having a lot of success overall. Is that something that you guys long term are going to continue to persist with? Yeah,
I mean, we've changed the shape in the last couple of games to play with those wingers to try and increase maybe a little bit of the productivity from those wide areas. It's not the only reason, but that's one aspect, I think, of the game. But yeah, absolutely, we're going to keep looking to improve from that. And you know, again, we do actually have good wingers who can play from wide spaces, or who are comfortable actually coming in and playing a little bit more central, and that allows then the fullbacks. And again, like you saw with Mo in the Orange County game, he then has the ability as the left back, or Gabby in the last game, who I felt had a good impact from left back in the last 20 minutes as well. You know, those are areas that absolutely we'll keep looking to improve in. But as I always say, it's not the only area, but absolutely for sure one area to become more productive. Yes.